Hey guys, so the other day I went to a guy's house to look at some Volkswagen parts he had available for sale. Sometimes that type of thing works and you find some, a nice big pile. Other times not so much. This was one of those times where he really didn't have a ton that I wanted. But one thing I did end up with and was this deck lid. And it is a 1965 deck lid. I believe it to be mostly original paint, at least. It's in pretty good shape. It's got a couple of dings, dents, things like that. I think it's ruby red, being a 65. Let me throw it up here. And you can see it's got, it's got some dings and things down the bottom, a little bit of rust. Got a lot of dirt and dust all over it. My plan for this one, I don't have a car for it right now. So my plan for this one is literally just to clean it up. I'm going to see if I can polish this and get it to, shine like good paint, see how it comes out. And it's probably going to be a wall hanger for a while. If somebody ever ends up needing it and it, is the right thing for them, then maybe I'll pull it down. But, I like to get them lit up and throw them up on the wall, and kind of, have a cool looking thing hanging there. So let me, I'm going to get out a bucket of water and some soap, and we'll clean this thing up and then see what it looks like once it's cleaned up and see if we can buff it out and get it to shine. All right, so I got this thing back inside. I'm just going to try to dry it up a little bit in the back here. I like to take them apart all the way to kind of buff them out. So I'm going to, it didn't really dry it much, but that's all right. I'm going to start with the license plate light housing. It's already got one broken stud here. I can see the nut and the stud are clearly missing. It should have on a 64 and up, they have 3 studs. They have 1, 2, and 3 studs, and that's all attached. Generally, I try to, it's usually that the threads are just horrible, and that's usually what stops them from working. I haven't sprayed this or anything yet, so I'm just gonna get a wrench on it and see if it turns at all. And you just want to go real gentle. So like this one, the entire stud is turning, which is actually all right, or it should be all right, because the stud is threaded into the light housing. Yep, that's coming out. So there's one. That one came out great. I don't know if you can see this, but you can see how nasty the top of these threads are. So I'll put that in a vise, and I should be able to get that out of there. If worst comes to worst, so you put a bolt back in, or a different, a new stud. See if we'll get as lucky with this one. Probably not. And all I'm doing is I'm going back and forth to try to break it free. And it, again, this one, the whole stud seems to be walking out. Get it so that it's turning pretty free. Yeah, it's moving. moving pretty good. It doesn't feel like it broke. It feels like it's spinning out. So, and if you feel any resistance when you're doing this type of thing, you want to stop because you're hitting a spot. It's almost like if you can take it out with your fingers, then you're okay to go. But if you got to put too much leverage on it, you're hitting a spot that it hung up on. You can easily snap these little studs. Nice. So there's another one. All right, get these out of the way. It's too bad that one's broken, but we'll see if we can get it out of there. Let's see. Wiring on the back of these is, they get these little tabs that are folded over to kind of pinch the wiring in place. Probably a pair of needle nose pliers would be better for this. Let me grab some. All right. And I don't like bending these too far because you can pretty easily break them off, or at least fracture them enough that they start to break off. All you need is far enough to get that wiring out of there. This looks like it's actually original wiring. It's still got the connector on it and everything. Kind of odd. Most of the time people take these off of cars, they just clip it, but who knows. And I'm probably not going to reuse this wiring because the way I'm going to set this up, it just isn't going to be the right thing. Let's see if we can get the screwdriver under this tab, give it a little bit of a lift, just enough to pull that out. Okay, so that should be all of that, and the license plate light should fall right through. All right, here's an odd looking one. License plate bracket. It doesn't look like, it might be a Volkswagen one, but it sure doesn't look like it. No, I don't think it is. Somebody must have replaced that at one point in time. Here's the license plate light. Get this gasket off here. This thing's rough shape, and you can see where the threaded holes are on each side, and then this one that's got the stud broke off in it. I may or may not try to get that out of there. Since it's just going to be a wall hanger, it may not, you know, I may just leave it the way it is. We'll see if I can get it out relatively easy, then I'll do it. Let me put this off to the side. Well, let's get this latch off here. These latches, so this latch started in 1965. 1964 had a T-handle. 65 was the start of the push-button latch on Beetles. And it's just 3 screws. These generally don't get too stuck, but same type of thing. You could either strip the head of the screw or break it off in the outer part of the latch, but either way, you want to kind of go easy with it. So there's that. You get your push button. Make sure you can see this. You get your push button. You push that, and it's supposed to. This one might be frozen. There's pieces of washer falling out of it. But we'll free that up and get it working. And then you've got this piece with the 3 holes where this just mounts in, and that's what you typically see. I think this button is actually stuck in right now. It was probably leaned against something for a real long time. There we go. And it rusted up a little, so we'll just move it back and forth a little bit. I'll spray it, throw it in the ultrasonic cleaner and clean out the inside of it, and then give it a spray, but that'll free up. And then get our hardware. Got one broken lock washer, no big deal, we'll find another one. All right, and then the last thing is just the spring up here. This is the spring that holds the deck lid up. When you open it, they're pretty tight. should just be able to squeeze these two halves together, get one side out, and then that's it. And then there's the spring off. And then let's just flip this back over. Get these hinges out of the way here. I'd like to fold those down. And there we go. We got a lot of dirt still left on it there. Probably should have disassembled it first and then cleaned it, but it's all right. This'll all clean off. All right, I'm gonna spray that, get a lot of this dirt off, and then I'm gonna let the whole thing dry for a few hours before I start even attempting to buff this thing out. It already looks a lot better than it did. It's cleaned up quite a bit. There was bird shit here and all kinds of random stuff. So it cleaned up a little bit. We'll see if it'll actually polish up and, you know, get as shiny as it is where it's wet. All right, so this license plate light, I'm gonna pull this apart just to get this, so I can get this wire out of here. Literally just 2 screws, Phillips screws. They'll just pop right out. Sometimes I guess they could get stuck, but I don't think you run into that too often. And then this should just pop apart. And if you're changing a bulb in your car, this is the same, you know, on the car, it would be the same situation. When you go to pull these out, this wire basically needs to come with it, or it'll kind of hang up, and the rubber gasket on me is getting, and this one is getting all stuck. All right, so there's the license plate light assembly. This one's in unbelievably good shape. Usually they don't look this good. I expected this to be all rusted. Oddly enough, I'm pretty sure this is original paint. We'll find out when we start cleaning up the paint on it. I don't see any areas that have spray on them. Even the gasket doesn't, but for some reason this light has a little bit of red on it. So I don't know if maybe somebody touched up maybe the bottom edge of the deck lid. I don't know. That's kind of odd. I don't think that would have been installed before the factory painted anything, so it has to have been done after the fact. This is a Volkswagen light assembly. You can see it says Hella and it's got the VW logo. And it's just in, gasket's all dry on it, but it's bordering on being able to be still used if I don't rip it right now. It's dry around the edges, but for what I'm doing with it, it probably could still be used. This wire now will just unplug regular spade terminal and get that out of the way. Yeah, the thing almost looks new. So it's odd to see one that clean looking. But I suppose if this lid came out of a junkyard when it was, you know, fairly new, I guess it could look like that. I doubt somebody replaced it. Yeah, it's still a 6-volt bulb that's in there, so anyway, that's what you got. I'll clean this thing up good. I don't know how well the paint's gonna clean up on this. These are, I think this is just pop metal. I don't think it's aluminum. I think it's pop metal. And when these get painted, a lot of the time they don't hold paint very well. You can see this is all cracked through here. So I'll try buffing this out, but you know, hopefully we can get something buffed out of it, but it's probably going to, a lot of this paint's probably going to peel off as I'm cleaning it, but. All right, so this thing's pretty dry now. I'm going to give it a little bit of a try buffing it and see what happens. It's, because of washing it with the sponge and the, is basically like a Scotch-Brite type sponge that had like a rough finish on it. it's taken a lot of the like the roughness off here. You can still feel it, it's covered, but it's at least it's not, you know, the high spots. So what I'm using, I've got this little what is that, like 2.5, 3-inch DA. I got a foam pad, and I'm no expert at this by any means, but it the way I do it, it seems to work pretty good. So I'm going to use some, this is just, you know, buffing compound, rubbing compound, whatever you want to call it. This particular one's a fine cut. This bottle's getting pretty old, so probably need a new one because I'm sure it's probably starting to dry out in there. So I usually just stick a little bit on there. And this is going to get loud. I shut the door to the room the compressor's in, but it's still going to get pretty loud because it's pneumatic. I generally take this and I just kind of spread this around a little bit. And then I let it go. Alright, so that's first pass on that. And then you just want to kind of clean this off and see where we're at. Sometimes if this is really bad, I'll wet the pad first a little bit just to kind of it's also only 50 degrees in here, so that probably doesn't help the whole situation. This metal is actually cold. If you can get a little bit of heat into it, you know, it'll kind of clean off a little quicker. But you can see that's already made a pretty big difference. A little dent there that you couldn't see before. So that's pretty much all I'm going to do. I'm going to go over this entire thing like this. And probably make a few passes. Once I do it once with this compound, then I have another compound I'll use after that, which is just this rubbing compound. I'm actually not sure which one's rougher than the other, but that's kind of the order I've been doing it in. And you can see how much paint's coming off just in that little bit. That's just this, it's cutting that top layer off of all the junk, you know, that's in this paint. Oh. All right, so that's a few passes with the DA. It's gotten it pretty good. You can see here, excuse me, where the gasket was is a little brighter red, like a brighter shade of red. If you wanted this perfect, you could wet sand this and probably get it back to that. I'm not looking to take it to that level. I was just looking to get it, you know, as shined up as I could. It's actually starting, you can see in some of these areas, or you might be able to see, where there's some of the darker colors starting to come through. That's actually where the, probably the original primer coming through there, or whatever was, you know, under the red. I do still think that this is original paint. It is odd to me that the red wasn't really sprayed underneath where the license plate assembly, license plate light assembly was. I don't see anything that tells me that this has been repainted before. Maybe Volkswagen kind of put these, I can't imagine that they put these on and then sprayed the car and then took it back off and put the gasket in there, the rubber. But I don't know, if somebody knows, you know, if somebody has an idea on that, let me know. So my next step here is I got some wax, and I'm gonna throw down a coat of wax on this, maybe two, and see if we can take out some of the, you know, the fine scratches that you get from doing that. And like I said, this isn't, I'm not doing a restoration here of sorts, you know what I mean? I'm just trying to get this as shiny as I can possibly get it so that it looks good hanging on a wall. I've done whole cars this way, and it takes quite a bit of time, but you can generally, you can pull out quite a bit of shine just doing it the way I just did it. And the wax definitely always helps. So let's get some, get this whole lower half done. The bottom of this lid actually ended up having a lot more, there's a lot more dents in this lid than I realized. Once things are shiny, you can see every little imperfection in it, so. But again, not a big deal. All right, that came out pretty good. So pretty good shine on it. I can, I'll probably do a little bit more buffing on it in just some areas that probably didn't get hit good enough. We've got all the parts to the license plate light that we're gonna need laid out here. I dug and found some new gaskets for it. I've cleaned and polished up the assembly the best I'm going to be able to get it. It's like I had mentioned, it's got a lot of peeling on it. I cleaned up the lens, got the overspray paint that was on it off. I did notice in here too, and I don't know if you can see that, but nothing's painted really inside of there. So I'm not really sure how Volkswagen painted these things.
But it's odd that it had a little overspray on this lens right here. There's no paint inside there, but there is a little overspray there. So I don't really know if somebody had touched something up or if this lens had gotten paint on it at the factory. It's a really nice one. I cleaned the paint off it and I polished it up. I was missing a stud here, and I had initially thought it had broken, somebody had broken it off. It turns out it was missing, and there was just some like mud dauber dirt stuck in there. I stuck a pick in to try to see what I could do to get the stud out, and found that there wasn't a stud. It was just dirt in there. So my first step here is, what I need to do is I need to, in order to put this deck lid together and have it light up the way I want it to, I'm going to use a transformer that has, these come, they're relatively cheap, has just a little connector with 2 slots for wiring to go into it. And this one is it's a 2 amp. And I think it's like a 4-foot cord. It's a cheap thing, but it works out well. I've got a 12-volt light bulb here. So I'll swap out the light bulb. Here's the 6-volt one. And I'll swap it to a 12. It's just a little easier to find transformers that are 12-volt versus 6. So that's why I always use a 12-volt. And this one, it's just going to slide in here. Let's see. What I'm going to need is some wiring. I'm figuring I'm probably going to need, 1.5 foot of wiring we'll start with, and then kind of go from there and clip it off when we get it over to the deck lid. Okay. So I'm using 18 gauge here. And I've got a black for a ground, and I'll use this yellow for the positive. No, you could use any color you want. I usually try to use black and red, but my spool of red is pretty much gone, so I'm just going to throw yellow in here. So I have this wire crimped on, but I like to kind of run a little solder into it too, just because it's going to be up on the wall, and it's kind of a pain if it suddenly gets a loose connection and stops working. So get that in there. Okay, so there's our wire. Get some of this stuff out of the way here. And the way this is going to sit is we're going to have our plastic piece here, that through, and then I'm going to run this in. And really all you're doing is you're just connecting this spade with this plastic piece over it. And this would be the same as if you were wiring this on the car. It would work the same exact way. Sometimes these can be a little tough to slide in there, so you may need a pair of pliers. Okay. So that whole piece is going to sit inside of here. I think I bent this just a hair. Let me straighten that out. Now it's sitting flat. Okay. There we go. And see, that'll kind of, the idea is that protects, the connection from the elements. I mean, you're still open on this end, so it was an attempt that Volkswagen made. So at this point, really, I can get my new gasket on here. It doesn't seem to be directional. these supposed to sit? Yeah, probably. Probably easier to just put it on the lens and then put the lens on. There we go. All right, and when this goes together, there's a slot on either side that's supposed to catch this bulb housing, bulb socket. See if I can get this gasket on here a little bit. It's probably just going to fall off before I get over there and put it on the deck lid, but it's all right. Get it. See how everything's going to fit. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Pull a little bit more of this through. Okay. All right, yeah, that's not too bad. The black wire I have is going to be for a ground, because obviously this deck lid is, in my case, this deck lid's not going on a car. So I need to hook a ground to it somewhere. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to put a loop on this end, and then I'm just going to, when I tighten up one of the nuts on this stud, probably that one because it's central, I'll hook this onto it, and that should put a ground into this assembly and hopefully hit that. We'll check it out here. All right. So we get our deck lid here. Here is our latch assembly, and I've got a new gasket for that too. Just happened to have gaskets for this year lid, so figured we'd use them. I've got this all freed up in grease, so it's working perfectly. Not, again, on this particular thing, it doesn't really matter because it's just getting hung on the wall, but if you were putting together a deck lid for a car, obviously you would want everything working right. So we get our gasket on, and then let me see if I can get this thing bolted in. It's pretty simple. This is just going to come in from the back side, and then this front piece is just going to go on. 3 screws going around, and this thing's on there. I've been sick this week, so it's nice to just get something done. This has been kind of a smaller project that I could work on, you know, a little bit here and there and get going. It's winter, and you know how it goes, so it's always some kind of flu or some kind of sickness going around, so. Okay. So there's our latch back on. A little fingerprinted up, but that's all right. And it functions. So the next thing I want to get on there is I want to try to get this license plate light on. See if I can do this in a way that you can see it, maybe. I don't know. My hardware. So the wire that we just added on to this has got to go through this hole over here. So we'll start and get this hole through here. Let me step the camera back a little or get it higher so that you'll actually be able to see what's going on here. All right, so we got to get the license plate bracket in there too. This particular bracket, it's not a Volkswagen one. It must have been something that either, I don't know if the dealer would have installed it or if this got replaced at some point. But it has a Superior Industries, and then it's got a part number on the back, 65200. Not really sure. Most of the time you find these and you've got a Volkswagen part number on it, or it's just the typical aluminum ones. But This one has a notch back here that sits in this hole, and then a slot on either side. So it's just gonna sit in like that. So it kind of adds a little bit of complexity to trying to get all this together at the same time. So I'm gonna see what we can do without dropping it on the floor. And hopefully you'll be able to actually see what's happening, but we'll see. There's one stud started there. Let's see if I can get the other one here. So let's get the center one on. I'm gonna put my wire over the top of it, and I got a lock washer to go on that. And then I've got a nut that hopefully there's enough stud here to grab onto. All right. And then we'll tighten these up a little. You don't want to over tighten these. It's a small stud, especially these old ones. I don't want to break one off, so just going to tighten it up until it feels relatively tight. Not totally necessary, but I like to use wire loom wherever I can, just to kind of clean things up and keep it good looking. It's going to take an extra, 15 seconds, a minute maybe, whatever it is, to get this on here. But at the end of the project, it's just going to look that much better. So we got a piece of wiring loom there. I'm going to zip tie it. And then I'm hoping I can feed this up through where the wiring ran from the factory. I don't know if the loom will fit. We'll find out. But I know it was tough getting the wire out, so I can imagine getting them back in is going to be pretty hard too. But all right, that's probably pretty good there. I'm not going to run through this hole or anything. I just need to run this up, and then I need to get this plug on the end of here. And I'll probably throw a zip tie in just to hold it. This puts my wire off to, one side or the other, probably this way, I guess, depending on where it's going, on what wall or where it's going to be hung. But get it to an edge and it's a little easier. All right, so to get this piece on here, you can just cut these back and then tighten the screw down onto it. I like to tin the end of my wires before I tighten the screw down, because this is stranded wire, meaning it has, if you don't know what that is, it's wire that has multiple strands running through the insulation. This type of a connector, it works for stranded wire, but really it's probably made for a solid core wire is what it's probably made for. I don't know that for sure, but I generally will tin these, which means you just put some solder over this wire, so it makes this end of this wire hard, so that when you tighten this down on here, it kind of clamps into it. So let me do that, and I'll bring you back. Okay. So I've got my wires tinned, so you can see I just put a little solder on each one of them. Now it's just a smooth, hard, and the solder will actually run up inside a little, so the whole end of this is pretty solid. I've also made sure that I've cut my wires short enough that when I put them into these sockets, I don't have exposed wire hanging out. Let's get this in. Okay, and there we go, that's it. I'll throw a few more zip ties in here. This one in here. Okay, got a larger zip tie. I'm just going to slide it through, and it'll just kind of keep this wire held up where it is. Okay, to hang this thing up on the wall, what I generally try to do is put a hook into the wall, screw a hook into the wall, and then I just run a piece of wire through these two hinges. Beetle lids are pretty easy to do this with. And this part's a little trial and error to get it exactly where you need it, and the amount of bow in this wire so that you don't have it sticking out too far. And this may or may not work. I may have to loosen this, tighten it, whatever, but I'm just kind of going off of, I think, what I've done in the past. Because what ends up happening is these are going to sit straight out, and to reach the wall when you're at a level place here, if you put a straight edge, so if we imagine, this straight edge is the wall, in order to actually hit a hook that's in the wall, you're going to have to come out, further than you would think with a piece of wire. And I try to leave a little extra so that it's not, if you make it too tight, it'll actually pull it up. So I try to leave a little extra, and we'll see. So we got our wire on there. You can see a little better from that angle what this is going to look like. And see, it does look like it's a lot of wire, but once this thing's up there, you'll see it's really not. It should be relatively close to the right amount. And then I've got some. If you care about your wall, and I try to keep things clean in here, this is going to scratch up the wall pretty bad, and where it ends up landing is right in this area. So what I try to do is I put a piece of felt on here. It's just double-sided sticky felt. It's not going to hurt the deck lid at all. It would peel off if you ever, decide this deck lid needs to go on a car and you're going to take it off the wall. So, pretty simple, sticky stuff, put it on there, and then it'll at least keep your wall clean where it's gonna sit. All right, so we got the deck lid all finished up. I've got a hook in the wall that a deck lid will fit on, so I'm gonna get this thing up on the wall. Before we do that, you can't hang up a deck lid without a license plate on it. So I went through my box, through the stash, and I found a license plate that's pretty appropriate for it. Considering this deck lid came off a car that was cut in half, basically in a junkyard. So we're going to put this plate on it. And I've got some somewhat appropriate hardware. It's new, but it's at least, slotted in square nuts just so it'll look the part. And we'll get this thing on here real quick. And then we'll get it up on the wall. All right, so here it is, hung up on the wall. I didn't even fall off the ladder and kill myself, so that's good. Looks pretty good up there next to the other early 60s, late 50s lid that's up there. Let me hit the lights and we'll light this thing up for the first time. Nice, there it is, all lit up.
So you can see with the a little bit of time polishing and stuff like that, this old paint can really shine up pretty good. That thing looks pretty good compared to what it started out as. You know, throw a little bit of wiring into it, a light bulb, and you get yourself a cool wall hanger. And that one will probably stay up there for a while unless somebody ends up needing it more than I do, I guess, at some point, and they've got a car that it matches. So generally the things like that, the only way I get rid of them is if somebody has a car that it's perfect for, and then I'd consider letting it go. But otherwise, we'll leave it up there and you know, get to look at it every day when we're in here. So if you enjoyed this video, do me a favor and like and subscribe to help grow the channel. I really appreciate it. Been getting a lot of positive comments on stuff, and it's really cool. I appreciate it. You know, it helps with motivation to get stuff going. I'm working on these projects anyway. Filming them takes a little bit longer than it normally would if I just, you know, did it without filming. So it's good that it's able to help people. That's kind of the whole reason I started putting this stuff on video, is to, you know, if somebody was interested and it would do somebody, you know, help somebody out somewhere along the line, thought it would be pretty cool. All right, have a good one.